Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Color Stories, Weekly Spark. This month is the last month of our colors, and we're looking at purple, violet. I'm even going to throw in a little pink. The remaining months of the year, we're going to talk about some neutrals and metallics. So, purple it is. Now, I've been traveling a lot and I've been out of the studio, and I sat down with no plans other than to enjoy the process because I really had been feeling disconnected from my creative process. So it was a joy to have this to do. Um, Starting with some watercolor, this one got a little too red. I used some alizarin crimson and some maroon. So there may be a good bit of layering on this one since that was not exactly the color I was going for. This piece on this pink paper, stamping it in blues and two different colors of purple, I thought might be a nice focal to use in one of the collages. Not sure it's going to make the cut. Might save that for one of the spreads that I'm doing in the book later on this month. But playing, just grabbing a stencil, grabbing a scrap piece of paper, things that appealed to me. You know, at the beginning of the video, you saw me with that pile of paper. I had just sorted through my scrap paper bin and pulled out things that worked in this color, kind of color palette. So I think it is too big. I think for the size of these small pieces, because remember, one of these is going to be a giveaway, available to a follower who likes and subscribes to the channel and likes this video, domestic US shipping only. That being said, I appreciate all the likes and subscribes and all the comments from everyone. Excuse me. Because I'm in the studio just, listening to music and drinking coffee, working in solitude. So it's nice to have a sense of community here and know that people are out there watching. So, like and subscribe. Scrap paper, tissue paper, just whatever. Some text, because I always use some text. I did set aside that stencil piece because I do think it's too big. And I am going to, if I use washi tape in this, I'm also going to glue it down. I have a lot of trouble with washi tape staying stuck. And so if I'm using it as an element in a collage, I'm going to make sure to glue it as well. It's one thing if it's in my bullet journal. That's fine. If it peels up a little bit, it's not a problem. But as an actual element in a piece of artwork, I want to make sure that it is permanent. So yeah, just working on the horizontal, trimming my paper to fit. I'm amazed that I have on almost no jewelry, not even a watch. I mean, I have a tan line where my watch used to be. That never happens. So, like I said, I had just come back from a show. I had unloaded everything into the basement. It was just so nice to sit down and collage on this day that I filmed these. So let's see, tapping my fingers on that paper, I need some kind of focal image. These are two antique stamps. I think they're from Switzerland, but the color was so perfect. I have some other collage ephemera there, purchased and printed out, that may or may not make it. I like the dragonfly. We'll see if that works out as an image transfer. But for now, let's just get some gel medium and get some things on the page. Yeah, some crumple, some texture. It's nice to add that visual interest with the texture of the tissue paper. Oh, one thing I didn't mention when I did the watercolors on these as the first layer, I did sprinkle on some kosher salt, some large grains of salt. And so you may have seen me brushing that salt off once the watercolor was dry. There's not a lot of watercolor that's actually still visible on this page. But of course, brush the salt off before you start collaging. Been having a lot of trouble lately with my Chartpak Blender pens not being juicy enough, having to use a couple pens at the same time. I'm not sure if I got an old batch or what, but might have to switch back to wintergreen oil, which also works for these laser print or Xerox transfers. Yeah, I like that on the diagonal. It needed some kind of image. Even if I do use the stamps, I didn't want them to be a standalone. It's a very faint image, so I think I'm going to have to go into that with maybe some gold, maybe some white, something to kind of bring it to the surface more. Now, I'm going to lose the veining in the wings when I paint over them. That's fine. That's fine. I want to brighten up the kind of center area of the collage a little bit. I will say that I think all of this video has been sped up to 2 times speed, so I am not this slapdash with my paint, but I wanted to streamline the process for you so that you could see how the pages, because there are 2 giveaways that I filmed in one sitting, see how these pages kind of evolve. It's never fun to watch paint dry. There is a metallic kind of gold element in the celestial kind of constellation washi tape on the right side. While it's showing up kind of white in the video, I think that's just the shine from the metallics. So the splatters of gold and the gold in the dragonfly are kind of linking back into that. This, what are we going to call this? Magenta, heliotrope, this pinker paper, red violet, plays off the color in the stamps. And so that's a nice kind of visual relationship built there. Do I want this bird element? No, not with the dragonfly, too much. A little more clarity, a little more detail. This is just a Micron black pen. I almost stopped there, but I felt it was just a little meh. You know, I like my layers. I like to build things up. So right now, the dark purple stripe is the only dark purple. And so again, to have that kind of visual relationship, I'm getting a little more of the dark purple in. I am stenciling with the sponge tip and using Ranger ink archival stamp pads. I also use Distress ink stamp pads, but the archival ones were the color palette that I wanted for this collage. So, easy peasy. Yeah, I'm liking that better. It kind of frames the left side. I might have gotten a little more on the stamps than I originally planned, but thinking of visual balance, thinking of kind of some composition, I decided I would stamp here on the right side as well. And I'll tell you now, not as thrilled with that. I especially don't like that it interrupted the heliotrope color, so I'm going to collage a new piece on, kind of erase that since I can't erase the ink. I think it took away more of the light of the page, that Harlequin diamond pattern. So I kind of regret that, but oh well, it's done now. Again, with some gold accents. You know, and one thing that you could do, I don't know if in your repertoire of tools and craft supplies you have any embossing powder, like used to be such a big hit. You know, you'd get a clear stamp pad, and then when that stamp design was wet, you'd sprinkle the embossing powder on it, hit it with a heat gun, and that would melt the powder into a slightly raised kind of glossy finish. That would be really nice for the text that I just put on there. I think I have some of that squirreled away, but didn't think about it until now as I'm editing the video. So that would have been a lovely way, especially if you don't love your own handwriting, that would be a way to add a text element. So clearly I've switched over to the second of the potential giveaway collages. And the focal point here is this scrap of wrapping paper that you see, kind of this dark mulberry purple with the swallowtail butterfly and the flower. So I'm pulling some of my palette from that, and I am going to cover up more of the red watercolor in the background since I just felt like it was too red. Pulling in some of the pinky tones. So far, so good. The background of the wrapping paper has a leaf pattern and kind of a berry pattern, and so this cup of black foam things that you see on the right side of the screen is actually some foam stamps, and they're all different foliage and florals and ferns on these nice long stems, so they're really fun to work with. And I pulled them out thinking there might be one that echoed the berry design in the wrapping paper to see if I wanted to incorporate that. Still thinking. Again, this washi tape was from, something surplus. And it's like poisonous plants and skulls. It's beautiful washi tape. I am going to glue it down, but it was a nice purple element, and I liked the skull. I liked that it wasn't too floral and too twee. So you see these stamps. They would be great stamped along the right side using the vertical. Not sure about them. They may show up again in future purple and pink episodes this month. I'm definitely feeling called to the florals with this color palette. As always, I'm using gel medium as my glue and as my kind of overglaze. I like to go over the pieces after they've been put in place because it does make sure that the edges get stuck down. I try and be careful with my edges and with trimming because when it's all dry and I go to peel off the masking tape, I don't want to have created kind of a glue sandwich, which will then result in collage elements tearing when I'm just trying to remove the masking, if that makes any sense. This idea came from the detail on the swallowtail, wanting to have something a little lighter since the bottom got really dark, wanting to bring some attention back down there so you would notice the designs in the tape, but some squiggly lines pulled from the stamens of the flower and that kind of scalloped edge pulled from the wings. Now, deciding not to use the foam stamps, but drawing in some berries on my own, using the same color palette and pulling the design right from the kind of focal point with the butterfly, the wrapping paper. With both of these pages, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did not have a plan. I went through my bag of my bin, it's a plastic box of scrap paper, pulled out things I liked and let the paper talk to me first. Because it had been a while, because these are the first mixed media pieces for the color for the month, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to be in the studio and enjoy using the materials. I do love the Posca paint pens. It's nice that they write over top of things. I get very impatient, but I did wait for the gel medium to dry so that I don't gum up the tips of the markers. But once it's dry, the Posca paint pens will write on anything. And they're nice and opaque. bring in a little more of that kind of pinkish burgundy color at the bottom. Pretty happy with that. I think that worked out just fine. And so now, sped up, double time. Well, this is actually in real time now here. The reveal. Peeling off a tape. Some people do recommend heating the tape up a little bit with a hairdryer or a heat gun, as that can help loosen the adhesive before you do your reveals. I didn't have any trouble with this one, luckily. The gold splatters on this one don't really show up here as well as they do it in person, but there is some of that to connect to the gold ink in the text and the gold ink on the dragonfly's body. It is interesting how one was lighter and the other came out a little darker. But as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Color Stories. And remember that these two pieces, one of them is available, dealer's choice, that would be my choice, as a thank you, as a giveaway. I do domestic shipping only, and all you need to do to be entered to win is to subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on this video. Until then, thank you for staying tuned to the very end. I appreciate it. Leave me a comment, and I will see you next week for another episode of Color Stories.